office. Again, according to the video game sales website I mentioned previously, and it would come face to face with the Super Nintendo Entertainment System in 1991, so 2 years later. However, this is revealed by like historians as like the first actual console war because the Magnavox just could not compete against the Atari, and Sega and Nintendo could actually trade blows back and forth with every game they put out. Sega would actually put out mascots like Knights and then Sonic to help compete against like Mario and all of those that I mentioned earlier. However, they weren't as known and there weren't as many. And then combining that with the fact that Nintendos were way more well known, according to Game On, a book by Dustin Hanson, which covered the mascots of this time period, more families would just grow towards Nintendo consoles and leave Sega in the dust. So with the Sega Dreamcast coming out in 1994, no one ever picked it up, or at least not enough to keep Sega afloat. And they would stop putting out video game consoles, but they would still develop like Sonic games, but they would actually put it on Nintendo systems, ironically enough. So in the 90s, like I said, about the first half was the first real console war between Nintendo and Sega. However, another company now, Sony, would actually enter with the PlayStation 1, and it would actually have heavy success over the Sega Saturn because it undercut its price by $100, according to the history article that I've mentioned like 2 or 3 times now. So I had its main mascot was Crash Bandicoot, which is an Australian animal, but they like made it even more wacky to like appeal to children. And Sony is also another mainstay today, with now the PS4 and soon to have the PS5 come holiday season, but I'll get to that as well. So after surviving the collapse, the industry is still growing today. It's full of competition from several companies, like I mentioned earlier, and the consumers, me included, have never been happier. So moving into the 2000s, the PlayStation 2 would start to dominate with its increase because games would start shifting from 2D to 3D, and people just thought it was a lot more appealing and that they would be getting more more bang for their buck, so to speak. And then Microsoft, another company, would notice the potential in the industry and make its own console with the original Xbox coming out in 2001. And the console actually had a healthy selection of games with a more mature mascot in Master Chief and Halo, which is a first-person shooter. So it's definitely a stark difference from the more kid-friendly Mario and Sonic. And this is all according to the Britannica Encyclopedia article on the Microsoft Incorporation. So the system pioneered online gaming and just made it all around more accessible for people to play with other people, whether they be on your couch or across the entire planet. And moving on to present day, we now have the Nintendo Switch, the Xbox One, and the PlayStation 4. Each system has online play, so we can play with whoever we want, whenever we want. A healthy selection of games with their own mascots to boot, and then unique like features for each console. So for like the Switch, it's what's called a hybrid console because you can put it in a dock and play it at your home like the other two, but you can also take it out and move around with it and go wherever you want. So you can have it on the go. And for others, they have improved system power so the games just look better and developers can do more with them and put more out into the market. And then also companies like Apple, like I mentioned at the very beginning, would make the App Store so then people could start playing games on their phones, which again was more accessible for gamers because if they wanted to play like at work or on the toilet, who knows, then they could do that. And then there was also the more recent invention of virtual reality, which allowed people to like almost put themselves directly into the game because they wear a headset right over their face. And then there's also research studies being done on that right now by the Official Library Institute and their official article. And people are thinking, especially them, that there's more stimuli. So they're thinking that for the industry, this is the best place to go financially. So we might see a bigger like move towards that from what we're seeing now over the next decade or so. And then also the industry is just not close to ever being done because come holiday season, specifically November, Microsoft and Sony are both looking out to put out new consoles. So for Microsoft, they're going to put out the Xbox One Series X, and then Sony is putting out the PlayStation 5. And this is also going to contrive into heavy competition, but the main features that both of these share is that they can play multiple games at once. And in the reveal, Sony is already putting out several different mascots with a new Spider-Man title, which no other system has access to, and that's all in their YouTube video, which reveals the console. So the video games definitely have a promising future, and at the end of the day, it's definitely made a name for itself and has come a long way. It's just become more accessible, and even though it almost died, it's come back stronger than ever. I've heard people say we were born in the wrong generation, but for video games, I think now is the time we should be living in.